Welcome back to No Fall Weddings, Week 8 edition, part of the Co-Working It universe. Please do me a favor, hit that like, comment, subscribe. I'm not going to lie, your boy's a little under the weather this morning, but nothing stops the college football train. And we got to start with last night's game, Georgia going into Texas and definitely messing with Texas. I'll combine it a little bit because Oklahoma and formerly number one Texas got a little exposed by the SEC yesterday. Georgia was up 23-0 at half. Oklahoma was down, I think, 30-3 at one point at home against South Carolina. Not even a mid-tier SEC team. The physicality of Georgia's defense was off the charts last night. Texas could not do anything on offense, to the point where they actually pulled a Heisman contender, Quinn Ewers, for Arch Manning, and that didn't do anything either. The game was kind of a dud until about late third quarter, when one of the wildest things I've ever seen as a college football fan happened. Texas picks off Carson Beck and returns it, I think, about to the 8-yard line, which means, hey, they score a touchdown. They're within 8 points. But the dreaded flag symbol came up on the TV screen. Pass interference on Texas. Well, the Texas fans did not really appreciate that one. They started throwing cans, bottles, everything they could onto the opposite end zone. So this caused a major delay. And during that delay, the refs, all 600 of them, huddled up. And all of a sudden, they took back the penalty. They said there was no interference after discussion. I thought Kirby Smart was going to be arrested. And you know what? I don't think I can blame him. So it's one of those things where, yeah, it was a bad call. It wasn't pass interference. It was actually great defense. The receiver created and made all that contact. But you can't just change the rules and the procedures of reffing just to get the call right. How about get it right the first time? But you can't have fans throwing stuff on the field and then rewarding them with getting their call. That was atrocious. It's just bad procedure. Again, it can't happen. Luckily, it didn't end up changing the game. Georgia scored a touchdown with about 3 minutes to go, put them up 15 again, and that was the game. It's funny, Texas, was billed as the number one team because not just because of their talent, but also their resume. But if you start looking at that resume now, it's not that impressive. They went in and beat Michigan, who now has 3 losses. We'll get to them later. Don't worry about that. And they smoked their rival Oklahoma, who also has 3 losses. I think I saw it was Georgia's first time being an underdog in like 2.5 years. Yeah, not a good idea. I wouldn't want to play them as an underdog. They are still too talented. And Kirby Smart is still the best defensive coach/coordinator in college football. I know one of my viewers is a good friend of mine who's a Texas fan. And I texted him during the game. I'm like, I'm only doing half-ass internet research here, but I'm pretty sure the last time Texas hosted a top 5 matchup, that happened, where the Buckeyes went in and beat them. Starting to notice a trend, even though that was way too long ago. Texas can recover, but they need to figure out the quarterback situation. I mean, Ewers looked lost in that first half, but Arch Manning didn't look any better. They don't have too rough of a schedule left over. I know they still got to go to A&M, who has played pretty well since their opening loss to Notre Dame. But as long as they navigate that schedule, they'll be in the SEC championship. As long as they don't embarrass themselves, even with a loss, I still think they might sneak into the college football playoff. But speaking of the CFP, we might not see Alabama in it. Who would have thought? Nick Saban leaves, and all is not well in Tuscaloosa. Bama got swept by the state of Tennessee. Whoops. Vanderbilt and Rocky Top. I saw it was Bama's first time having 2 losses before November since 2007, which was Nick Saban's first year. Their head coach, Kalen DeBoer, I hope you didn't unpack everything. That fan base is too spoiled to be losing to those kind of teams. Because Tennessee, they're not very good. Like, they got a great pass rush. I give them that. And they held Jalen Milroe to basically nothing on the ground. But Tennessee has struggled on offense the last couple weeks, and that game was still very winnable, which again, I talked about it last week. Now I'm annoyed because Tennessee has a top 10 win. They might even be top 5 now. Let's move over to the Big Ten where Illinois gives Michigan. I told you I'd bring it up again. Its third loss before November. I'm telling you, the earth is just, it's you can feel it, right? You can feel it. It just feels like it's correcting itself. That asterisk last year is getting bigger and bigger, Ann Arbor. Michigan's quarterback situation is an utter disgrace. How that could be what was backing up J.J. McCarthy last year. It's embarrassing. But Illinois now 6-1, nothing stopping them from making a run at the Big Ten championship. And usually I know better. I usually know better as a college football fan. Never give up on a game, no matter what the score is, no matter how much time is left. Never give up because anything can happen. How Lincoln Riley and USC choked that game away is amazing. They had ball with about 2.5 minutes to go, up 6. Maryland had no timeouts, and I just turned it off because I'm like, there's other games to watch. I'm not going to watch USC. Finally get a decent Big Ten win. Check the score an hour later. L. Lincoln Riley, USC. You wanted to break up the Pac-12, come into the Big Ten and show off all that Hollywood speed. You're now 1-4. You haven't even played Ohio State yet. Speaking of that game, that's where the play of the day comes from. The game-sealing tackle. But I'm not just doing it for the play. Listen to this announcer. I don't know his name yet, but I got a feeling we're all going to learn it quick because he brings a level of excitement to the sport that doesn't even need it, but is very welcomed.
Fourth down. Marks. Dropped it! He dropped it! Caleb Wheatland forced him to drop the ball, and that'll do it.
I mean, you would have thought that was the Maryland home announcers, which is awesome because USC had a good play where he reacted the same way. So he wasn't biased. If it was a big play, he was going to let out all the emotion. And that's awesome. Shout out to the Terps. Crab cakes and football. That's what we do best. Let's look at the top 3 Heisman for this week. Got a little change up at number 3. Got to knock out Travis Hunter and put Dylan Gabriel in. Again, I told you I was salty because they beat Ohio State last week. There was a lot of talk about them going to Purdue after a big win and maybe a little letdown game. Nope, 35-0. Kid's really, really good and definitely deserves to be in the top 3 right now. Number 2 is still Cam Ward. I mean, I actually think his lack of defense on the other side of the ball is helping him because he has to put up these numbers to win. It's incredibly impressive. He's so good. And he makes some incredible plays, whether it's actually using his brain and reading the defense or just pulling a Houdini act. But he's just so damn good. But some of these other quarterbacks around the country, they don't get to play into the fourth quarter because their teams are blowing them out. It felt like all day yesterday against Louisville, and he got the ball is because Louisville just tied it. So he had to go down and score, and he always did. But I'm going to stick with Ashton Gentry at number 1. He was on a bye, so I'm not going to hurt him. But he needs to have a big game to keep Cam Ward off his back. Just a couple quick hits around the country. It's a little slower day yesterday, not going to lie. But Indiana putting up 56 on Nebraska. They are dangerous. If they take care of business the next 3 weeks against Washington, Michigan State, and Michigan, they're coming into Columbus as a 10-0 team and might be a top 10 matchup. As a Buckeye fan and my defense that's a little iffy, I'm definitely nervous about that one. Our weekly Florida State update. 1-6. Lost to Duke on Friday night. My Fighting Irish went into Georgia Tech. Got a nice W. Oh, no, wait. They didn't go into Georgia Tech. They played at the Georgia Dome, the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Why? It's college football. Enough of the neutral site games. That game should have been played in Georgia Tech. Those fans deserve it. I touched on it a little bit, but Miami and Clemson, it kind of feels like they're just gearing up for that ACC championship right now. Miami's offense, 4th time they put up 50 points this year, which I think is a school record. Clemson has completely turned it around since their opening week loss. You know, I hate on Dabo, but he's definitely done a pretty good coaching job this year. Let's do a little preview of week 9. Looking at some games here. LSU at Texas A&M. LSU just played one of these games against Ole Miss last week where it feels like it's potentially a college football playoff knockout round. Both teams have one loss with a pretty tough schedule too. So you don't want to get that second one before November. So that's a big game. Texas A&M, again, man, they lost to Notre Dame to start the year. Looked ugly, but they've definitely turned it around. Illinois at Oregon. Doesn't feel like a Big Ten game. Still won't. But, hey, Brett Bielema, after a big win against Michigan, they stormed the field. Now they head out to play potentially, unless, depending on the votes go, the number one team in the country. Couple rivalry games. Again, that sad-ass Florida State team playing Miami. My God, Miami might beat them by 60. Or Florida State might play their best offensive game of the year because Miami has no defense. Might as well keep an eye on that one. Michigan State, battle the little brother. Man, if Michigan loses that one at home, heads might start to roll. But I think the biggest game next week, Notre Dame at Navy. Navy, undefeated, 6-0. Fighting Irish coming to town. I bet you game day might go there too. Notre Dame cannot afford a loss the rest of the year. And they got to play Navy and Army, who, again, will be undefeated by the time they play each other. Man, I'm all for respecting the troops, but Fighting Irish got to get this W. Thanks for watching No Fall Weddings. My voice is about shot. Thanks for putting up with today. Again, like, comment, subscribe for this channel, and we'll see y'all next week. Sorry, Nick. It's all off.